Alright guys, thank you for clicking on the video today. Just to tell you guys first off, I'm working on like 3 different videos right now because I'm doing all these projects at once, but I want them to be their own separate videos. So we have fuel system being one video, header being the second video, and then the turbo being the third video. I'm going to try to keep this as simple and interesting as I can, but this video is going to be on the fuel system upgrade. So what I've done so far is I've drained the tank as much as I could. I just pulled the fuel line off, routed a line into a gas can, and then primed the pump a bunch of times until I could hear the pump wasn't sucking more. I could probably do it more, but I didn't want to run the pump dry, so we just got as much as I could out. I got about like 2.5 gallons out, so it should be fine. But basically the course of action we got to take right now to get down to these fuel rails and stuff right here is I basically got to pull the whole intake manifold off. So I'm just going to start stripping everything down, getting it apart. We're off to a bad start. Turbo still looks and feels good in there. I'm going to start taking apart this intake manifold. Mainly, I'll just be pulling all this old fuel rail stuff off of it because we won't need that anymore. So just going to be unbolting it and removing it and getting that out of the way. So I was going through and doing a little bit of research on all this stuff that bolts onto here, and I was able to get rid of a lot of it. One being this piece right here, which is for the evap system. It's basically a purge valve, so the evap line that comes off the fuel rails plugs into here in a few spots, and it regulates the flow of gases going through it into the intake. So we don't need that anymore because there's no return, or there's no evap line on this new setup. And then I also pulled off the old boost control solenoid. With deleting the purge valve on the turbo inlet, I plugged this second barb. And then over here, I plugged this nipple that's on the front of the intake manifold. But I might unplug that and use that as a boost reference, possibly. I don't know, we'll see. To put the new MAC valve on here, but I don't know if I'm going to have port 1 vent to atmosphere or try to figure out a way to plug it into here. I haven't figured that out yet. I removed all the old fuel system stuff except the major components, being the flex fuel sensor, obviously from the tank, the fuel pressure regulator, and then I'm going to install the rails on here. But basically what you want to do is all the components that aren't hoses you want to install in the place that they're going to be in, and then you want to make the hoses and fittings route to each of those components. So first things first, I'm going to get the fuel rails ready to go on. We're going to bolt those on, and then we're going to start working on the hoses. Alright, so what I'm going to do first is get the fuel rails ready. And in order to do that, these are just the blank fuel rails, the I Build Racecar. These are -8 AN ORB. So the kit comes with -8 ORB to -6 AN adapter. It comes with 4 of them, so I just need to thread all these in here. And I got some little bit of grease. You could use oil, for this. Pretty much any type of lubricant that's good on the O-rings. You just want to put it on the O-ring so it doesn't tear. This stuff I have is from my injectors, so it's definitely the right grease for the job, but you could use a few different things. So just put a little bit of that on there. Wipe off the threads. And then thread it in there. So I don't have a, well, I only have this -6 AN wrench, so I don't have a -8, so I just got a 22 mil wrench right here with some tape on it. If you don't have AN wrenches, you can do this too. And I'm just gonna get these nice and snug down. That should be good. You don't need a crank on these, you just need to make sure that they're good and tight, because obviously the O-ring is doing the sealing. So you pretty much just bottom them out, make sure they're snug. Alright, so there we go. Now we got the fittings on the fuel rails. Alright, so here's that one installed. This one was a bit tight. It's tight in the back right there. But it fits good, it doesn't hit anything, so hopefully the other one goes on a little bit easier. So the first line that I'm going to attempt to make is this one right here that goes from the firewall to the ethanol content sensor. Alright, so first thing I'm going to try to do is get the hose installed on the straight section so that when I put it on, I can just measure what length to the next fitting. So this is my first time doing AN fittings, full disclosure, so I'm not sure exactly how this is going to go, but this is how the fitting comes. So you got the end that goes on the actual flare, and then the end that goes on the hose. So the hose, you unthread this part, and you want to install this piece onto the hose first. I like to think that I'm a smart person and I'm good at researching this kind of thing, but nowhere did anybody ever mention that the piece that threads onto the hose is left-hand thread. So this whole time I've been trying to thread it on, turning it to the right like a normal thread, and it wasn't going on. So I was having to like push really hard and do all that stuff. Figured out that it's left-hand thread, took it off, tried it again, threaded it on left hand, it went right on. So that's just goes to show you, now it looks perfect. That fitting went together perfectly. So this kit is good. I just didn't know what I was doing. So now I know what I'm doing. I think this will go together a little bit better. Okay, so this is where the hose needs to go, and it's coming from here because it's the feed line. So we'll slip that on. There we go. Okay, so I can kind of see what bend this needs to take and where I need to cut it. Wrap this tape around, and that's going to help me cut it too. Keep it neat when I'm cutting it. Okay, so I need to get a better cutter. This one's not working too well, but hopefully this does the job. Alright, that wasn't too bad. Grab this nut and tuck the fraying the best you can, and then you left thread it on. Push and left hand thread. Now just to finish this off, I'm going to clamp it in the vise. And then push down and left hand thread. Okay, and then you could see, you probably can't see in there, but it bottoms out. There's like a little shelf there. But yeah, that looks really good. No fraying, no nothing. This end, I'm gonna put a little bit of oil on the piece that goes in, just to make it slide in easy. And this is right hand thread. So you kind of got to push it to get the thread started. And then once the threads are going, just turn, turn, turn. nice finished hose. Now we can get this installed. Alright, so this thing goes on here. Click. And come on, baby. Click. And look at that. Oh man. That looks good. Look at that. It's kind of a sharp bend, but that's what I had to do, so. But yeah, it looks pretty good. Now we just need to make all 200 more of those lines. I was using these like PVC hose cutters. These work really good for like plain rubber hoses, but for this they don't work so well. So I got some of these, which are cable cutters. These are from Harbor Freight. They're just like a cheap pair, but that's what they are. 10-inch cable cutters. They're for like they're also called battery terminal cutters, so they're for cutting really thick wire. Since these have a stainless steel braid in them, it makes it hard to cut with normal cutters. I've heard these work really well, so we're going to try it out and see how it does. Yeah, that works really well. Okay, so there's our cut. So I'm just going to keep going through and doing the rest of the fuel lines. I think to do the ones that are going, you know, across the engine, I might have to get the intake manifold back into place to make sure I'm not crossing over any hoses, because the turbo inlet comes right here and I need to know how low I need to get it to go underneath. And then same thing with the throttle body inlet coming out this way to the intercooler. I need to know if I need to go over it or below it, so I need to get that back in place, which means I probably have to wait till my turbo's back in place. So I'm gonna do whatever I can now, but you'll see me putting the fuel lines together once all that stuff's where I need it. You can see that line comes across nicely and it ends right there where the T is gonna be. So I made all the fuel lines except for the one that goes from here to here. So I'm gonna put the turbo inlet back in so that I can figure out how I need to route it. This is probably the last look at that for you guys. So there's actually a lot more room underneath the inlet, so this line can actually go underneath apparently. So we're just gonna route it that way. So I'll start by where the fuel comes in. So this is the firewall right here, the fuel feed. This goes into the ethanol sensor, comes out of the ethanol sensor, one pipe down to part of the T, and then it splits off into two lines. This one goes to the passenger side fuel rail, this one goes to the driver's side fuel rail. Then the fuel goes through each fuel rail, comes out this hose, which goes to the side of the fuel pressure regulator. And then this one comes out this hose, does a loop around, and then it comes out the other side of the fuel pressure regulator. And then after the fuel returns from the fuel rails to the fuel pressure regulator, it comes out the bottom of the fuel pressure regulator with this hose, and then goes back into the firewall on the return line. So I'm going to time lapse the installation of these fuel lines, and then I will show you the final product. So here's a little look at what the system looks like all together. This one's not plugged in yet because it needs to go through the intake manifold. But yeah, it's all routed cleanly, nicely. Yeah, I need to put the intake manifold back on, plug in all this random stuff, get it ready to fire up. So I'm gonna slap all this back together. Alright, so the fuel system's all done. You can see all the fittings, and these two lines routed into the intake manifold. Those ones go under. It all looks really neat and nice. Pretty stealth looking, even though, you know, it is like race car parts and stuff, but not too bad. All I gotta do is put the intake on, and then we're gonna fire it up. Okay, so we gotta check for fuel leaks. So 18.5. I think I'm out of gas. Alright, well, it looks like I gotta go get gas before I fire it up. I didn't think I drained that much from the fuel system, but apparently I did. So, got new gas in it. We prime the fuel pump a little bit. Check for leaks. Check for leaks again. Don't see nothing. Okay. Give it another. It's got 44 psi, so I guess we can crank it, see if it starts. Hopefully it does. Okay. Sounds pretty mean. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I'm working on doing some tuning videos. Hopefully they turn out good. I'm hoping they're not going to be boring, and hopefully I'll have good footage of it. But so stay tuned for those tuning videos, and then also stay tuned for the turbo and header install videos and a bunch of other things that are coming along. So as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below. Any questions, leave them in the comments down below. If you know somebody who might like this video, please share it with them. And if you aren't subscribed, please consider subscribing. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.